Welcome back to the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast here on Friday, February 1st, 2019, kicking off the new month right here on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify. If I forgot any other ones, you know where you're listening to this. Today, previewing the Super Bowl, I have Josh Brogadir of WCVB-TV in Boston, the ABC affiliate up there in New England, to talk about the Patriots heading into this big game against the LA Rams. We're going to talk about the game, give our predictions, and all of that. But first, quick reminder. The Jackson Neill Sports Podcast is brought to you by Believe the Hype. This new sneaker selling company buys the latest hard-to-get pairs and sells them straight back to you. That way, you can rock the latest pair of Jordans or Yeezys even if you miss out on their release day. Visit their Twitter and Instagram at Believe Hype Shop and check out their eBay store to see their current stock. Links to all of that down in the description. So, let's get started and head over to Josh Brogadir. Him and I talked about the Patriots ahead of this weekend's Super Bowl against the Rams. All right, you ready to jump right into this?
All set, man.
All right, so just start off. What has been the overall feeling surrounding the Patriots, this Patriots team this season?
You know, I think a lot has been made, Jackson, about the idea that this team is coming apart at the seams or had been all year. And I think the team really fed into that as far as trying to channel that underdog mentality, the idea of the us versus them. But I really think they just used that for motivation. Sure, they were a little bit disrespected at times compared to years past. But a lot of times it's just because when a team loses a game or two, and in this case this team lost 5, it has a more vulnerable feel than usual. But as far as like in locker room stuff, I did not sense a major drop-off in leadership, any infighting. In fact, the Alex Guerrero story was much diminished from years past. So it does feel like business as usual with this team. I know we've been saying that for a very long time now, but that's really what it's been like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's the Patriots for decades now. It's been some of the same old things. So you're saying that compared to like last year's team, like it was runner-up to the Eagles, and there's other Patriots teams, not too much has changed about this one?
I do not think so. No, I mean, little nuances change each year. They have different playmakers, or occasionally there'll be a player they'll take on, whether it was James Harrison last year, and then you have Josh Gordon this year, sort of like a reclamation project, for lack of a better word. But you know the Patriots have done that so many years and made some of these guys have either an extended career or a new shot. So that may change the dynamic a little bit. But for the most part, no, it really does feel like the same kind of operation that we've been seeing for many years.
Same operation, same results so far. Let's just move over to the game now. What have the Patriots been doing specifically well this season? Is it, again, similar, the same old Patriots way, or have they been incorporating new things, especially on the offensive side?
Well, I think on the offensive side, the biggest difference you'll see this year is a much steadier running game. And the rushing attack has come from a few different places, as it has in past years. They're not just going to have that one feature back. In fact, most teams, you would say, don't have that anymore anyway. But I really think the surprise of Sony Michel has served this team well, because what he's allowed the team to do is open up the passing game. And yes, these are short passes, they're out routes and stuff like that. But when you have to respect the run, as other teams have had to do, and you have a guy like Michel in there, it's really changed the ability for them to move, down the field. I especially think that he's been a great complement in the second half of the season to what James White was in the first half of the season, where he was shouldering more of the load as a running back, in addition to his pass catching, whereas the second half, really, they were leaning on Michel. And then they got Burkhead back a couple weeks ago, Rex Burkhead, and that has opened up the dimension even more to have 3 different guys. You saw him score the winning touchdown in overtime against the Chiefs to get them there. So really, he's been a big part of it as well. A lot of people would think, Jackson, like that would have been Sony Michel's spot, right? He's been their feature back, so get him in there to push it in. But nope, there's Burkhead. A different guy can do it. So the long answer to your quick question is I think the running game has really changed the dimension of this team as far as the offense goes. And if I can just jump in for a moment on the defense, that is something that has not been very well respected this year. Malcolm Butler left. against, in very checkered circumstances. What was going on last year in the Super Bowl, I do not have to tell you or any of the Eagles fans listening about that whole scenario. But what's happened this year is you've had other guys step up, like J.C. Jackson is a guy who really was not known, but he's a bigger, more physical corner. He stepped in on the other side. Gilmore on one side, Jackson on the other, and really the corner position has been one of their strengths in their defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot right there. And you mentioned the running game, like you mentioned Burkhead, Michelle, White. There's so many different names, like as always in the Patriots way. And even some of these guys like Burkhead, who's bounced around a lot in his career, but yet scoring the game-winning touchdown to send a team to the Super Bowl now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Burkhead's the kind of guy where he didn't really quite have the number one spot, for the Bengals when he was there for a few years. And he came here a couple of years ago, and it was, this guy Rex Burkhead can really add a dimension to the offense. But like so many times this happens during training camp or whenever they come, in the spring perhaps, you're a little skeptical with how they're going to fit into the Belichick team and really is how he's going to use them. I mean, he may say nice things about them. They might come in, highly touted. But then you get a situation where, maybe they're sort of on the outside looking in. And there are so many examples of that as well. And you've seen like an Eric Decker come in where he just doesn't fit in for whatever it is. You think he's going to be great, he's not. Reggie Wayne at the end of his career, that happened as well. But Burkhead is a much younger guy, and he has a lot left in his legs. And so Jeremy Hill going down with an ACL tear earlier in the year, before really they got out of the gate, gave him more opportunities too.
Mm-hmm. Now let's go in a little bit into the specific matchup against the Rams. Where are some areas, we're talking about these things the Patriots doing well right now in this playoff run and throughout the season. Where are some areas, though, you feel like the Rams might hold the advantage over the Patriots and New England has to kind of, it might be a little behind in those areas?
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage that the Rams have is really with their interior defense. And I know I just told you that I think the Patriots' running game is very capable, and I still do. But you can't overlook Aaron Donald and the big guys up front. So if the Rams have a little bit of an advantage on defense, I think that's where they do. The one other area I think the Rams might have some, strength is a guy like Aqib Talib in the corner. I mean, the Patriots obviously would love to have him back on this team. He left a couple of years ago. He is big. He is physical. And some of the Patriots receivers, they know what they're doing as far as some of the short routes and getting over the middle. But Talib can really lock somebody down. So in that regard, I would say if the Rams have any advantage, I'd say it's up the middle and also a little bit on the corners as well. But I still don't think, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in the next couple of minutes here, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think the Rams have enough to stop the Patriots' offense.
Gotcha. I mean, you mentioned right there the interior defensive line, Donald, Sue, one of the, if not the best, one of the best combinations in the middle there for the Rams. But for the Patriots running game, I'm curious, in your mind, what would be a successful day for the Patriots running game against this Rams front?
I mean, I think if they can run the ball 25 times for in the neighborhood of, 100 yards, 110 yards, and get a touchdown or two, I think that's a realistic expectation. I don't think they're going to march down the field for 180, 190 yards as we've seen them do when you have like a 100-yard game from Michelle, and then each of the other guys, might chip in with like 30 or 40 of their own. So I think it's more realistic to be in that 100 range. Now, if the passing game is successful, and by successful I mean not gaudy numbers from Brady. I think that we're past that for the most part with the way they've been doing things this year. But if it's a pretty balanced offense and we see the running game get to 100 with a couple touches and Brady ends up getting a pedestrian for him 21 of 27 for 240 with a touchdown and a pick, then I do think that that's a recipe for the Patriots to win, because right there that's going to talk about in that neighborhood of high 20s, low 30s scoring. So I think if they can get to that 31, 34 kind of threshold, I think they win this game.
Okay. And then now flipping over to the New England's defense. We've seen L.A. at certain points, especially with Sean McVay's play calling, being able to break games open at certain points. My mind instinctively goes right to that Kansas City-L.A. game back in the middle of the season. What did the Patriots have to do on defense maybe to keep that Rams offense in check?
Yeah, honestly, it has so much to do with their secondary. The Patriots, The Patriots' pass rush is, I don't want to use the phrase non-existent. That's really overstating it because they can adjust and sometimes do good things. But it is the weakness of the defense. Getting to the quarterback has not been their strength this year and really in past years for the most part. So I would say it's really the secondary. I mean, can they hold these guys down? We talked about the corners before, and the safety play is incredible. I mean, you got Devin McCourty and his brother Jason, who comes in sometimes in nickel and, helps out, obviously, in the safety area. And then you have Patrick Chung, former Eagle, who's been doing this for a very long time. Some of these guys are in their fifth Super Bowl. I mean, a lot of the guys are in their fifth Super Bowl. And so they clearly know what they're doing there. So can they shut down the Rams? No, the Rams are still going to get some. Goff's going to get some stuff. I like Cooks, obviously, being able to have a pretty decent game. He knows some of these guys. But overall, I do not think this is going to be that Rams-Chiefs back and forth, quarterbacks throwing for 400-plus yards kind of game. I just don't see it as a big slugfest like that. I think both defenses will have more success, especially in the first half, and keep this a much lower scoring game.
Mm-hmm. So before we get over to a prediction for this game, there's just been this one storyline that I've heard a couple times throughout this whole build up to the big game, and that's with Tom Brady and how many more years does he have left in the tank? How many more years should they have him under contract? For you, what do you think is the right number of years if the Patriots were to give him an extension or keep him under contract for?
I think they can go 2 years and be comfortable. I think that seems like a reasonable number right now. Now, Brady may want more than that, and I think if he asks for 3 or even 4, which sounds like a big stretch unless there's some options in there and deals to make that worth their while and his, I think 2 years is a magic number. Listen, Tom turned 41 in August, and anyone can see that maybe he does not have that weapon to throw to over the middle, which would increase these numbers, and everybody looks at numbers and what he's capable of doing, and yes, he has made some worse decisions, I would say, this year protecting the football than in recent memory. Having said that, is he a quarterback who can still lead this team and lead it successfully at age 42? I would say absolutely yes. Can he do it at age 43? Maybe to a lesser degree, yes. So that's where that 2-year deal comes into play. Do you want Tom Brady as a 43-year-old quarterback knowing what he's done already? Or do you just say, we're going to take a chance on a 1-year deal and have him say no and potentially opt out or retire? I mean, they really have to make sure that they think of Tom's best interest here. He's been with the team 19 years. They don't want to make the mistake of losing him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a crazy conversation to be having right now. A quarterback at 41 years old questioning how many years should they give him on an extension. Just a ridiculous conversation. It's wild.
Sure is.
So I want to now, talking about that, I want to just go back to the game. This is the tough part. What do you think? What is your prediction for this Super Bowl?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of more of a middle kind of range scoring game. I don't think the Rams are going to dazzle in this one. I think they're going to struggle to move the ball at times. I also think they're going to struggle in the red zone. And Zerline, if he's healthy, and it sounds like he's probably going to kick, has that big foot. So if they have a couple drives that sort of stall out right at that 25, 30-yard line, they're going to get some field goals. And I always make a prediction of a number, and the number is obviously hard to hit given, you don't obviously know exactly what's going to happen in the game. But I'm always willing to do it, and so in that regard, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to say 31-20 Patriots, and I think that the Rams will have a few of those field goals as we're talking about where drives stall. Patriots by 11, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, this is going to be their 6th, and I don't think the game's going to feel all that close. I always root for close games, whether it's the Patriots or anybody else, simply because of the way football is, and it's just more engaging for the fan, especially on a Super Bowl where you have 30 other fans of 30 other teams who are just watching a game without a rooting interest per se. But I don't think it's going to be all that close. I think the Patriots will open up a couple of touchdown lead, similar to what they did against the Chiefs, and I think they're going to hold on.
Well, hearing your prediction, that was something that closely aligns with mine. I think that, I'm picking the Patriots to win as well. But I hope for a close game as well, but I can see everything you just said playing out exactly just like that. Josh, thank you so much for doing this interview.
Absolutely, Jackson. It was a pleasure. Take care, man.
Again, a big thank you to Josh for coming onto the podcast. Remember, check out his stuff for WCVB-TV in Boston in case you are in that area, or you can follow him on Twitter at Brogadir-TV. Links to his stuff will be down in the description of this podcast, so make sure to go check him out. And now before I wrap up the show, I just want to give a little bit of my thoughts on the Super Bowl and this game. Well, the reason I brought on Josh was because, in my mind, the Patriots are my Super Bowl pick. I think they're going to be the team that comes out on top here against the Rams. Between the experience that the Patriots hold, I mean, look at Tom Brady. Look how many Super Bowls he has. The rest of this roster, Josh mentioned it, about some of these players going into their fifth Super Bowl. Tom Brady's won 5. It's just a ridiculous amount of experience. We just know the Patriots have been there before, and I think that means a lot for a Super Bowl. That while the Rams, I think, are a very good football team and even more talented, I think that's something that's not really stated enough, is that the Rams, purely based off of talent, look at some of their star players. Look at some of the people they have around that roster. It's a very talented football squad. I think Sean McVay is an excellent NFL head coach. I don't think anyone would disagree with that statement. So it's a Rams team that's definitely built to win a championship, but something about this Patriots team, they just find ways to win. And I could see Belichick coming in here into this game saying, finding the perfect game plan against Goff, pressuring him just enough while still giving their secondary enough coverage back there. I think it's going to be a game that the Patriots come away with the win and might be a little ugly. I think it has potential to be close, but as Josh said, there's a potential for this one to not really feel all that close at any time. And Tom Brady has a way of doing that in certain games where you think you're about to come back, but he scores another touchdown to keep that lead to about 10, 11 points. I think the Patriots are going to come out on top with this one, 27-17, once it is all said and done. With that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can catch this SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all those great places. Trying to do it a little bit of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type of deal. So make sure to check back in at the top of next week. Also, in the same podcast feed are my other podcasts, Anything Goes to Jackson Neill, where I interview musicians, and the Jackson Neill Music Podcast, where I discuss the latest issues in music and talk to various music writers. The Jackson Neill Music Podcast is usually published on Sundays, so check that out this Sunday, maybe before the big game, or you can save it till Monday and listen to the sports and music same day as well. Lots of cool interviews for Anything Goes are in the works, so make sure to have that and check that out as well. And also, gotta mention, the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast is brought to you by Believe the Hype. This new sneaker selling company buys the latest hard-to-get pairs and sells them straight back to you. That way you can rock the latest pair of Jordans or Yeezys, even if you miss out on their release day. Visit their Twitter and Instagram at Believe Hype Shop, and check out their eBay store to see their current stock. Links to all of that down in the description. Also down there in the description, links to Josh Brogadir and all his stuff. Big thanks to him for coming onto the podcast, as well as my own Twitter and Instagram at JacksonNeill20, where I post and publish links to all of my podcasts and additional content and all of that. With that'll wrap this episode up. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys next week.